It's time to ham up.
Now I gotta really try hard.
Shut it down!
Somehow it's the best.
The YumChunks podcast.
YumChunks!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to After the Credits, the podcast where we take a closer look at movies, TV, games, any sort of pop culture, and tell you what we think. We're YumChunks. We're your hosts. This is Sean.
I'm Matt.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Craig.
Pick up the cues, guys. Pick it up.
Fix it in post. We'll fix it in post. How's everyone doing? We're back for episode 5. Tonight we're going to be talking about Deadpool 2. The Merc with the Mouth is back. We'll tell you what we think, because we all saw that movie. It helps to tell you what we think after we see it. So we're learning as we go.
Cool.
But until then, anyone, what have people been up to this week? Catch any other good movies or bad movies?
No. I haven't seen any other movies recently. I'm still I'm halfway through season 4 of Mad Men, so I'm halfway through the series. I love that show. Boy, do I hate every single character in it, though.
That's how, as a creator, you know you're doing something right when there's no redeemable characters in your show.
Everyone in that show is awful. But it's a grand old time. I finished Arrested Development: Fateful Consequences.
I will say, on your recommendation, I have started. I'm about halfway through that, and I am enjoying it a lot.
Yeah, I know the 4th season, there were people who loved it and people who hated it. And I feel like if you're on the extreme, you're going to feel the opposite about this than you did about the original edit.
I love the original Rashomon version, and they added jokes to this new
They did add some jokes,
but
yeah.
Overall, I feel like because it was originally designed around that initial Rashomon style, that it didn't feel as snappy as the previous seasons. Yeah, I don't know. It was still okay. The jokes were still there. It was just, it didn't feel quite right.
Well, I didn't like that it felt really spoon-fed, but I liked that I could watch it while I was tired and not have to pay as much attention and still understand what was going on. So, I'm pretty in the middle with both edits of the season. So, there we go. Almost done with school. Got 2 weeks left, winding that down. Then I go to my other job. That's it. That's all that's going on with me. What? Anyone else want to share?
Ryan?
I haven't seen any movies other than Deadpool 2, actually, since the last time we spoke, I don't think. But I went to 3 concerts last week, so I was pretty busy with that. I saw Not a Surf, I saw Pedro the Lion, and I saw Colts. So it was a grand old time last week.
I literally have no idea who any of those are.
I've heard of those.
I went to a concert, too. I went to see Weird Al's ill-advised Vanity tour.
I went to that as well, but I went to...
Oh, you did?
And I saw that you guys had seen that. I went to it literally the night before that you guys went.
Oh, where at?
In L.A. at USC, or at, where was it? The United Artists Ace Theater, I think it's called.
Cool. Yeah, what did you think?
I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I didn't realize going into it, because some friends got tickets, and he's like, hey, I have an extra ticket, you want to go? I'm like, okay. And I like Weird Al, but I know him for what I think probably 99% of people know him for is the parodies. And this whole tour was his original work. So it was a lot of stuff I'd never heard of before, which was great, which was cool because it was just new stuff for me. And then he would have some a little medley of some of the fan favorite parody stuff. But it was great. It was really a lot of fun. The crowd was super into it. And of course, he's always just amazing performer. So. Yeah, it was cool.
Did he close with the Star Wars song?
Yeah, he closed with Yoda. I feel like that one.
He closed with Yoda?
Oh, did he close with the...
He did Saga Begins for our concert.
Okay, yeah, he closed with
And
Yoda
that's one of the cool things about this tour is I've heard that he's switching up the set list every episode, every tour stop.
Yeah, that's what he... I don't know if it's true, but he played it in LA 2 nights, and I went the second night, and he said, he's like, hey, who was here the first night? Well... Hopefully you like this one too, because we changed up the set list a lot, and I don't know if he was just saying that, but it sounded like he was actually serious. So
no, I've heard that he's been changing the set list every stop on his tour, which is cool because have you seen him before?
Yeah, I've seen him a couple times, but again, they were his mainly when he was
his
doing
big show.
big shows.
Yeah,
and stuff.
he does his big show, and his big show is very tech heavy. He has like 12 costume changes. He does the video stuff and everything. And this was just like him on a stool singing his deep cuts, and that was cool. But I've never seen him not close with Saga Begins, and that's how he closed with ours too. Cool. So that's always fun because it's always the big sing along. But yeah, cool. That's cool that you got to see that. We both got to check that out.
And Weird Al is way cooler than any of these concerts Ryan went to, whatever these made up band names are.
Well, I brought it up to people on all right, whenever I see Weird Al, and they're like, "Oh, he's still performing," and I'm like, "Yeah, his career has outspanned most of the people that he's parodied."
Yeah,
so it's cool. He's still doing his thing. He's a good performer. I forgot I did that. Thanks for bringing up your whatever concerts that you went to.
Yeah. What about games or anything else? TV show or games?
I'm part of the way into Uncharted 3.
Oh, that's good.
So I'll be done with that soon. That's it.
I'm really just waiting for Detroit in a couple days.
Yeah, I'm curious about that game. See how David Cage is very eclectic. It's a very acquired taste, I'd say.
I think Heavy Rain is probably one of my favorite games on the PlayStation 3 library, but Beyond was not.
Have you seen the promos they're doing too? They have all the like, meet this character and some robot, and they're just like, "Hi, my name's Chloe. I'm a robot." I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the game.
The way he writes, and especially this one seems like his craziest ideas yet. I would just love to see his narrative tree, because it's got to be just insane at this point. The way they were showing it off and everything. Each action has like close to 5 different ways of playing out at least, and obviously it's a video game, so there are so many actions that you do.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's pretty crazy, and that's what I'm looking forward to as well. But I'm also I'm cautious because of Beyond and anyways. But yeah, that comes out this week. I haven't been up to much. I kind of have been revisiting Undertale. I don't know why that spurred me to do that, but I really like that game. Check that out if you haven't.
That's why you haven't finished God of War yet? You've been playing Undertale?
Well, on the side. I feel like, God of War is like your big beefy meal, and you got to have like a little like salad in between to cleanse the palate.
I thought it was supposed to be before.
Well, whenever. I don't know. This metaphor is breaking down. All right, Chris, don't analyze it. And also, I'm almost done with a book series that I've been reading for a while called The Stormlight Archives. Book 3 I'm almost done with book 3, and it's a fantasy series, big ol' epic fantasy by Brandon Sanderson. He wrote Mistborn, and he finished off the Wheel of Time series after Robert Jordan died. Anyways, it's relatively new, sweeping epic fantasy. A lot of fun. Recommend it.
I'm also finishing off. I am in the middle of Mistborn. Not finishing off. But...
Oh, yeah. Have you gotten used to that guy's voice that you hate who reads it?
No, absolutely not. I took a break in between book 1 and book 2 to listen to other things. Much more emotive and interesting people. And then when I got back to book 2, I think I almost fell asleep at the wheel the first time I was driving home. He just doesn't emote at all. Everything is just a flat line. It is... It's like, I could tell that the book... There's a lot to the book, and it could be good. But when I hear it coming from his voice, I just want to take a nap.
Well, maybe you should record your own version and send it in. We could start a side work of audiobooks recorded by YumChunks.
Well, I want to start a business where we just use the newly released Google API for text to voice, and you just hook up any book you want to it.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a business, or isn't that just something that you could do?
I could just do that, but then I don't know. You got to find a way to make money off of anything now, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's the real. That's the kicker there.
Yeah.
If you just brand it right, yeah, anyway, people pay for it. So, cool. Well, So now that you're all intimately familiar with what we've been doing the last couple of weeks, we'll get into the main discussion, which is Deadpool 2. And of course, normal spoiler warning ahead. So don't listen if you haven't seen it. But yeah, we're going to get into some details of the film. So Deadpool 2 actually came out last week. We're now just getting to it, but it's still relevant, guys. I think it's still relevant. Well, what'd you think? Anyone, jump in.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good. Yeah, good.
Good. Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
I really liked it. I probably liked it better
Good.
than the first one.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
I liked things more. There are things that I liked better about each one, but I think it kind of, the first one has that kind of newness factor to it, and kind of the like, wow, I can't believe they made a good Deadpool movie factor to it. Kind of the prototype, like, it seems like a property that would be more likely they'd mess up than they'd get right. So it was kind of the same with the Avengers. It's kind of like, wow, I can't believe they pulled this off. Neat. Good. And so the second time, it's not quite as much of a, it's not quite as new, and it's not quite surprising that they now know how to make a Deadpool movie because they've done it once before. I think some of the humor was a little bit sequelitis-ish. It's kind of, there's few too many referencing the first movie jokes, but I don't know. Overall, it's good. Budget, you could tell the budget was bigger. You could have, that was definitely evident.
I mean, I guess I was never really that big a fan of the first one. Like, yeah, the jokes were funny, but I really hated the way the story played out in the first one. The plot itself was very generic, and the fact that you sit there halfway through that movie and you're still in the opening scene, essentially, I don't know why. It just really rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, that didn't bother me. Because, you could re-edit that in chronological order, and then what? I mean, would you have liked it better if they had done that?
Maybe. I don't know, because I haven't watched it that way. But
to say,
because I feel so tired by the time we get off the bridge scene, and there's not a lot of time left to do other things at that point. It just feels, I don't know.
But I'm saying, to say that the movie is only just barely starting halfway through it, it's not. It's just told in non-chronological order. But I think that was actually one of the smarter things about the first one, because the budget was so small. And I remember reading, they said, like, Ryan Reynolds wanted a certain budget, and Fox was like, you're not going to do that and get an R rating. Like, if you really want this to be rated R, we're giving you this much money. And so they're like, all right, we'll make it work. So kind of, that was a clever way of getting a lot of mileage out of the bridge action scene, I thought, in the first one. So, that worked for me. And I liked in the second one that they did the flash forward to kind of keep continuity theming wise between the two movies. But then they didn't, because they had the larger budget, they could actually much sooner jump back to the present day and advance the story. I thought it was neat. Like, they didn't need to, but they decided to anyway.
Yeah. Ryan?
Yeah, I agree that, I thought it was great. I thought it was a good film. The whole jumping back and forth thing, I thought that was good. I agree with you. I thought they definitely intentionally did that, where they kind of kept the storytelling symmetrical between the two films. I enjoyed that. I think overall, definitely didn't feel like the second one was as fresh as the first one. The first one would definitely kind of, it was the anti-comic book movie, and so that was kind of like, oh, cool, they breaking the fourth wall, all the good Deadpool stuff, and it was just more of the same for me, at least for the second one.
It's interesting that you say that the first one was the anti-comic book movie, because I feel like the second one tries to have its cake and eat it too, right? It's trying to be fourth wall, and it's trying to be commentary on the comic book industry, but this one feels more like what we would expect out of a modern day comic book movie.
So it's funny you said that. That was actually exactly where I was going.
Sorry.
No, I'm glad you said that, because that means
that's
I
so
disagree.
rude of you, Chewie.
No, because it took me a little bit of time to see this one. I didn't see it on opening night, so I had the opportunity to speak with others who had already seen it, and they were pitching it as like, they would, let's say I'm in a group with people because this happened, and someone was like, "Oh, I'm not going to see that movie. I don't like comic book movies." And then the people who had seen it like, "No, it's not like Avengers and the other comic book movies. It's an anti-comic book movie." Or I didn't say that term. That's just something I made up.
Sure, but yeah.
And then so I'm going in expecting it to be okay. Well, yeah, but really it just felt like it was under the guise of that, or at least perception or whatever. But I don't know. It felt just as indulgent in being a comic book movie as Avengers was. It just happened to break the fourth wall a couple times here and there. Which
indulgence a good word.
Yeah,
I think because it's kind of like the saying that like limitations breed creativity, and like the whole like, well, now we got to get creative, and so like, all right, our limitations. We don't have a budget large enough to make a classic modern what people do expect comic book movie, so we got to get creative, and here. They didn't need to be as much, and they were like, oh cool, we want to have this gigantic crazy action scene, we want to have the big giant CGI battle, which they comment on,
right,
but it's still there. They were still able to do it.
I feel like they just kind of go about it in a different way, because you can still say it was kind of anti-comic book in the fact that a lot of times when you do a sequel, you do the pairing up, or you bring in more heroes, right? That's how you up the ante. And that's how they pitched Deadpool too, right? All the trailers were like, X-Force, that's the thing. But then it's like a 15, 20-minute gag in the middle of the movie. The fact that it's just like, no, it's still just a Deadpool story. Everybody else is gone.
Well, I was saying this to Maeve when I was watching it, or after we watched it. I was like, until the X-Force shows up and then they all promptly are murdered immediately. I'd forgotten for a while that I was watching a Deadpool movie. Like it stopped feeling to me very Deadpool-y, because there was that whole, everything leading up to that was the whole kind of you're in prison and all that stuff with the kid and everything. And yeah, there are jokes and it is funny and there's fourth wall breaking, but it felt very much like it was on the rails, whereas the first movie felt a little bit more off the rails. And it wasn't until that gag where they parachute out of the plane and all die that I was like, oh yeah, right, this is Deadpool. Of course something like this would happen in Deadpool. So it was definitely a tonal shift for me between the first and the second movies. I'm comparing to the first movie a lot, but whatever.
I mean, when was the last time you guys watched the first one?
Not that long ago. Earlier this year, probably like January.
Yeah, about the same for me, probably.
I just bought it and I tried watching it again, and I don't know. I didn't laugh as much as I did when I saw it all those years ago in theaters 2 years ago.
Yeah. So, Sean, I want to get your thoughts on this. I was actually talking to Lana about this, but she was kind of saying that the movie, Deadpool breaks the fourth wall and kind of points out flaws in the writing, where he turns to the camera at some point and says, "Oh, that's just lazy writing." But, just because you identify your own flaws, it doesn't exactly excuse you from them, right?
Right.
So, I don't know. It is kind of, it's like, I equate it to like writing an email and then including a postscript. It's like, well, you couldn't have forgotten something. You wrote an email. Like, you could have gone
right.
It's not like you sat there with a typewriter and I can't go back, so I got to include this at the end now. Well, so I don't know.
I've got a very obscure comparison to this, but maybe some of you will get. Maybe Ryan, maybe you'll get it. I don't remember how long you watched Glee for, but
too long.
They yeah, and anybody who watched Glee watched it for too long. Yeah. But there was an episode where it was like one of the teachers was a victim of domestic violence, and in the school, the kids they're like, we're gonna make her feel better, so we're gonna do this song this week as a tribute to her, and they do Cell Block Tango from Chicago, which is all about murdering your husbands.
Yep.
And which is, it's such bad taste. And then immediately the very next scene is the principal yelling at them for how bad taste it is. And it's like, you can see the lazy writing in there, like, this is maybe not in good taste. Well, we should comment that. We should address that. That way we're absolved of criticism. Right. But it's not absolved of criticism. It's still in bad taste.
Because they still made that choice. Yeah.
They still did that. They still filmed that and put it on television. And in Deadpool, they still made those choices. Yeah. And there are things like that in the movie that, like, like things that don't really make sense, and you kind of have to like, okay, do we care? It's Deadpool. Deadpool kind of almost feels like it has that little extra like, well, I don't care, it's Deadpool, you know?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the specific like that where they do look at the screen, he says, "Oh, lazy writing," but there's stuff throughout it. I mean, I think when it comes down to it, whenever you're kind of pointing something out, or when they're parodying something, and it's just true with all of parody, and that's what Deadpool kind of is a little bit. It's kind of walks the line between revisionist and satire, kind of. Mm-hmm. Is that you're commenting and you're offering some sort of new perspective on what you're satirizing. So, but just pointing it out in itself isn't any sort of commentary. Like, right? So I guess that's the thing. Is like, and I agree that most of the time, I think that was one of my biggest issues with the film, is that most of the time it felt just like that, just pointing out these kind of tropes for the sake of pointing them out, but not really actually doing anything with that. And for that, like you said, to a certain extent, you kind of like, oh, it's just Deadpool. But I think in and of itself, that is kind of a funny thing. Like, oh, it's just Deadpool. I mean, Deadpool 1 made million, like it was broke blockbuster. So you can't even say that. You can't get away with just saying it's just something now, right?
Well, when I say it's just Deadpool, I'm not to say like, oh, this is insignificant, so we should discount it and give it a pass. What I mean to say is like, well, they don't care about the rules, so should I care about the rules?
Yeah,
that's kind of what I mean.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just kind of posing the question.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Because you're right, but even beyond that, though, some of the bigger issues I had was beyond just like the simple kind of jokes, and the thing is that like every film does those kind of writer cheats anyway. It's just how well you could hide them. So, well, of course, any time travel thing, or you go back in time, like you have to be really clever and smart to make it seem somewhat believable or plausible. And obviously, they're like, we don't care enough to really do that for this. And it's like, okay, well, I guess I shouldn't care enough to worry about it then. I guess is the kind of the agreement as an audience we're making, I suppose. But beyond that, there's just like major like kind of structural problems I had with it. I felt like, to me, the third act of the film was my favorite part of the film. Pretty much the scene when they're all in the room, and for one, it's hilarious. It was one of the funniest scenes. But when his legs are growing back, and like everyone's and everyone's just there, and that whole scene is funny. But from then on, I thought the film was great. Like, was really good, and kind of was firing on all cylinders, everything I wanted from a Deadpool film. But up until then, there was just, to me, there was no strong central through line of what was going. Like, there was no antagonist, not really. There was kind of Cable, but you didn't really understand. Right. There was no central conflict. There was just Deadpool kind of doing things in the moment, but there was no overarching like, what are we working towards? It wasn't even like, I have to take revenge on who killed my wife. You never even see those guys. You know what I mean? Like, that was irrelevant, and it's just like, okay, and then he doesn't have a will to live, and it just kind of like, it felt like just kind of like leapfrogging from the next circumstance to the next circumstance into situations that really weren't justified. So like the whole scene when they're skydiving, why were they skydiving?
For a gag.
Exactly, that's my whole point.
Exactly.
Like, it's a whole 20-minute sequence, like that. Like, I'm okay with like kind of side things like that, or things that are kind of snarky like this. But like when you have an entire huge big budget scene that is completely meaningless, right? They just skydive, and then there's a truck. Like they couldn't just have found the truck.
I mean, I guess my counter to that is just the fact that, I mean, this is not an excuse, but isn't that just Deadpool? I mean, that's how he's written. That's how he's written in the comics, and that's what people like. So if that's how he's written, and that's what people like, then that's what you give the people, right?
But going towards Sean's,
I guess I'm speaking to like the bigger structural things. Is that Deadpool,
right?
No,
yeah, I feel like go ahead.
I want to go back to the first movie, because we were criticizing, commenting on the structure of the first movie, but going to what Sean was saying, it starts with the, how did I get in this situation? And it sets up, okay, Deadpool's trying to get revenge on someone. Now we're going to flashback, and we're going to find out what his motivation is. And you spend all the flashbacks, figure out what his motivation is, and it doesn't. You have a very clear target. You have a very clear goal. What's the point of this movie from the beginning of the first Deadpool movie? But yeah, there's a lot of. I kind of agree with you now that I'm thinking about it. There's a lot of things that happen in this one that has a very just kind of small setup. Like we got to go do the thing because of the thing, and now it's going to lead to a lot of screen time.
Yeah, don't mistake. I'm not necessarily. I don't dislike the film. I still enjoyed the film. I still liked it. But there were just these things, kind of that it was. I couldn't just like ignore, and they did in some way or another affect my overall opinion of the film. And things like like Juggernaut being like. I guess he's the main villain, kind of, but he's introduced 3/4 of the way
really.
to the film.
I thought the kid was the main villain.
Well, is he? That's my point.
preventing his older self from coming into being was the antagonist, right?
Well, we don't even find that out as an audience, though. That's what I'm saying, until 2/3 of the way through the film. So that's what I'm saying. There's none of that conflict that arises from having a strong antagonist pitted against, that's driving the hero's goal.
And then, before that, Deadpool's goal is to somehow find a way to die, right?
The prologue was, but then he does.
Well,
die.
no, not even the pro. Well, he dies, but then he's revived because he's immortal, and the situation is how can he find a way to die? And so that's his to me, that was his driving force because of the cryptic clue that he got from his dead girlfriend. It is what led him to the kid, which then led him to thinking, oh, if I do something with this kid, it'll eventually lead me to whatever I need to be able to just die in peace. And
was that? I mean, I understand what you're saying.
That's the story I took.
I just thought that was very occluded.
Well, we all know I love Batman v Superman, so I enjoy looking into things too far.
They did make a reference, a couple references, but Martha...
I feel like they blew that joke. He should have used that joke when he first met Cable. Like he somehow just as an attempt to find peace. Be like, wait, is your mom's name Martha?
Yeah, that would have been good.
That would have been good. But speaking on his immortality, again. This is Deadpool, and I'm not as familiar with the Deadpool comics as probably you are, Chris. I've seen the most of the time I've seen him in the comics is when he's been kind of intruded onto other comics that I have read, and you just get the Deadpool, and he's kind of acts as a little bit as a trickster antagonist almost, especially with Spider-Man and stuff. But is that if he's immortal, does it make a lot of all these scenes? I remember watching the scene in the prison and going do I care about any of this? He can't die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, in the prison scene, he had his immortality suppressed. So
sorry. In the prison, I guess that's
the only part of the movie that I felt any kind of stakes, and I'm like, oh, he could die, but
maybe not the prison. Maybe I'm thinking of the later after the skydiving scene when they're in the truck. I think that's what I was thinking. That whole truck sequence. I'm just what I don't.
But at that point, isn't that part of the joke? Is just watching how many different ways... when Juggernaut just walks up to him, and he's just being an ass to Juggernaut, and then he, rips him in half, right? And he's just oh, that's the thing. I found that really funny, because it's just
that was funny.
I know there's no stakes, and so it's just funny to see the top half of Deadpool just chilling and trying to still have fun on the road.
Well, I think for me, after the midpoint of the movie, the emotional kind of core shifts to Cable, which I think overall is the standout for me as far as the story goes. Because if you're going to be invested in anything, it's can they shift this kid's point of view so that he doesn't go kill Cable's family, right? That's what the stakes are.
Yeah.
Because Deadpool is at that point, he's a clown, right? He can't be killed, and he's the comic relief. So he kind of takes a back seat in his own movie after the midpoint, which I was okay with because I really liked Cable. I liked how he was established, and I thought he was a good, it was a good adaptation of the character and good performance. So I was all right with that. But it kind of makes for a weak story if you're going to try to say that Deadpool is the protagonist of this film.
Yeah, I mean, I like Cable a lot too. I thought Josh Brolin. I mean, it's funny they have the Thanos joke as well, but in both films, he definitely was a standout of the films. And I don't even necessarily didn't think I loved Josh Brolin or anything like that, but it's funny that both films that he is definitely some of the best parts of them.
Well, and there you go.
I guess I'm in love with Josh Brolin now.
I guess so.
I did like the little Hope Summers call out at the end. It goes by in a second.
I missed it.
Well, it's just when he goes back in time to plant the token on Deadpool, and Deadpool's little jerkish comment, and then he turns around and he's like, "Oh, her name's Hope." Or whatever. Oh. This is a little X-Men call out since Hope Summers is such a huge character.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It was funny how, like, weirdly, Deadpool seems to be almost more, like, beholden to a lot of the comic lore than even, like, the more pop mainstream ones. Like talking about Juggernaut being Professor X's brother as, like, like, just, like, weird things like that are just like, oh, okay.
I do like how X-Men-y this movie is. I like that they ramped up the X-Men stuff. I like that they did that. They dropped in Juggernaut's background. I think I'm a little off topic, but I think that overall, I think this movie's a really good sequel to the first movie because I really like how the themes of the movie are expanded. Like I love how, going towards the X-Men stuff, that Colossus in the first one is all about, like, Deadpool, you got to do the right thing, you got to be moral, you got to stand up for what's right, whatever. And then in this one, Deadpool's the one that has to teach somebody else, oh, you got to do the right thing. And I think that was a good way to expand as a sequel on the original storyline.
I did like when he busted out that speech from the end of the first one. That Colossus gave him. That was pretty funny.
And stuff like that, I thought it was okay when they referenced the first one because it served a purpose. Like it felt like, it's a natural expansion of the overall storyline.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good. I sort of felt a little bit that Deadpool was too good in this film. Like he kind of just became a paragon, whereas I don't know. I mean, I don't have too much experience with the comics, but I always felt like he was very much a more villainous character. But this movie painted him as being very goody two-shoes, so I don't know.
He's definitely a pretty hardcore anti-hero. Instead of being grimdark, though, he's just a goofball in the comics. So, like, I don't know. I'd be surprised if, when they make the third one, if he's not back to just murdering pretty much every. I mean, even in the finale, right? Even though Colossus is there, him and Cable are just murdering all those perverted priest people or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a popularity. It's just like, over popularity. He probably originated as closer to what you kind of thought of him as, Ryan, as more just like a more, not hero in no way,
malicious a little bit more.
But because with popularity comes a little bit more, obviously, appealing to more mainstream. And we can't just have a murderer. We got to have some sort of, like, rationale or justification for how he's doing this and why he's
perfect example to counter that, or not counter that, but to go with that is Venom.
It's got to be a contrarian, even when you're agreeing with me.
Venom. Well, I don't know anything about Venom, but I was going to say it reminds me of Harley Quinn a little bit.
Yeah, definitely, exactly. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, I think he always had the goofball part, so I think they still got that part right. But it is interesting to see how that character's changed, even though he's a relatively new character, in as far as comics go. Along with just kind of like not having a ton of stakes because of his mortality, I also kind of kept thinking, like, I don't know what you guys felt. Do you think, like, some of the self-awareness and just the comedy and just, like, the irreverence to everything undercut some of the more serious moments? Or is it just me? I think, like I said, the third act still worked for me. So I liked a lot of the stuff you're mentioning about the family and kind of the message. For some reason, that worked for me. At the very end, or the scene with his wife in the afterlife and Aha playing and just, like, reminiscent of the actual, music video, which, like, there was a lot of fun, those, like, things. And so that worked for me. But especially early on and throughout, whenever there was supposed to be moments of kind of more heartfeltness, or it completely just missed for me, because it was, I don't know, like, none of the characters seemed authentic. Like, not authentic is not the right word. None of the characters seemed, worthy of my, emotional trust, when they're just, like, having side conversations about the origins of, his brother being Professor X, which is a self-aware joke. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just like there was this weird conflict in my head as I was watching this film. I don't know if anyone else felt that.
I think maybe at times. I mean, that's going to be to each their own, really. It depends on how much you're capable of feeling as a person, I suppose. I mean, I'm reminded of Chris going on his tirade about not feeling anything during Infinity War. But, I mean, you know, to each their own. I mean, like, I'm sure there are scenes that work for me that didn't work for you and vice versa. But, there were some moments that the emotional weighty parts that I think they got right that probably worked for more people than others. But
did anybody see that meme online? Because you know how Spider-Man's such a popular costume at cons? Yeah. There was a meme online of the new hot Spider-Man costume, and it was just a pile of ash.
Oh, yeah. I saw one where it was an action figure, but it was just filled with a bunch of dirt. The packaging. Sean, to your point, I kind of give Deadpool a little bit of a pass on those kinds of things versus other Marvel films, such as Doctor Strange. I think Doctor Strange had a lot of what would have been very powerful emotional moments that were, I think, spoiled by a moment of humor that was kind of just a throwaway gag that not a big payoff, and kind of just ruined a otherwise powerful moment.
I just actually rewatched Doctor Strange the other day while I was cleaning my house, and yeah, that's a big problem I have with that. I mean, a lot of people say that the MCU, in comparison to the other comic representations on film, is a little too jokey, and I don't think that's always true. But yeah, I think that's a problem with Doctor Strange, and I don't know. It doesn't seem to bother me as much here, and I also kind of feel like, you know, Deadpool kind of they know who their target audience is, and there's an element of the 13-year-old man boy, like edgelord kind of like, oh, we got to keep this. We can't get too serious because, you know, feeling. If it's too serious, then Feels
and SJ Dubs are ruining movies, and Luke isn't the most powerful person and everything. So
exactly, yeah, it's not manly to feel feelings.
I'm sorry if those people listen to our podcast.
I'm not sorry.
Stop feeling feelings.
No, I get that. I do agree that Deadpool is for whatever reason, or if, you know, justified or not, is different than the kind of rest of your standard superheroes. So to a certain extent, it's kind of a pass. I think maybe to me, and this is more of a broader thing, is I just remember just kind of being exhausted while watching it, and part of it was just kind of a lot of like the action, and there's a certain level of just like you get desensitized and it's just noise. And I didn't really think this film was bad, like with that in particular, but I think on top of that was just culturally everything now is so self-aware, and so there's a certain like, I don't know, like a fatigue that comes along with that, where now everything has to be a joke about this other joke that you remember from this other thing. And it's really like, did you see that meme? It's a joke on this, but this is a meme that's a joke on this meme that was referenced from this. Like, and
well, that's how I felt about Ready Player One.
Yeah.
When I said I was like, it's a lot, and I felt tired and hungover when it was done. That's what I'm talking about. It's that feeling. It's just that, like, you know, but that's a movie that is built on that. That's its foundation. So right. I think something like this, my tolerance was a little bit higher because there's other stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I still enjoy the film, and ultimately, for the most part, I think a lot of the jokes still worked. So even when I was, like, you know, feeling a little bit inundated with that stuff, for the most part, there were enough jokes that kept me just like, you know, okay, laughing throughout or whatever. So.
Well, then that's good for you. I'm proud of you.
Thanks. It means a lot. I did like the post-credit scene. Like, are we assuming? Are we assuming that's canon? Like, Deadpool 3, she's alive, right? And
I hope so.
Well, yeah. Okay, I have questions about that, but then again, I feel stupid asking them because it's Deadpool. Yeah. But like, as far as the logic of this universe goes, but he like Cable goes back in time, but when he's back in time, he's himself, right? But is Deadpool himself every time he goes back in time?
What do you mean himself?
I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, it's like the Days of Future Past rules of going back in time. Like Wolverine goes back and he inhabits his old body, but there's not two Wolverines running around in 1970s.
Yeah. I thought there were two Deadpools running around when he went back. No?
Yeah, but there weren't two Cables, were there?
No.
Because Cable wasn't born yet.
Cable wasn't born yet when he...
Well, when he goes back to put the coin in the thingy...
Oh,
I don't want to think about it.
Exactly. It's just easier to not think about it.
I guess that's true. There was only one Deadpool then, right? I suppose.
And there's only... Yeah, but it is, it's just sort of...
Well, he didn't go into his worser X-Men origin self when he went back to murder him, so...
Right, and that's another question. Is that himself?
Oh, you're right.
Did he jump... Did he go back in time, or did he jump universes entirely? And
Wait, but that was the same... Was that the same universe up until now?
Are there two Wade Wilsons? Also...
Both played by Ryan Reynolds?
Right. Also, why is Colossus in this universe, but it's young Professor X?
Yeah, that's what the other thing.
None of this matters. None of it matters.
This is the only thing that matters. This is what's most important. Yeah, because they're all the young, like first class generation X-Men in that shot.
Actually, it would have been hilarious if he went back in time and then he did see himself, and then I don't know, they made out or something. That'd be hilarious.
That would have been pretty funny. Yeah, but again, I mean, you could. If you want to pick it apart, you can, but what's the point?
Yeah, it's not. But I think
what's the point?
Yeah, there's some of the best post. I mean, it wasn't even post credits. It was
right
in the middle credits.
But I think if Deadpool 3 happened, and if his girlfriend was alive, I would accept it, and if she was dead, I would accept it. Like that's what I'm getting.
I guess that's probably what they were hoping for. Like we do whatever.
That's
we want
where
now.
I'm at.
Hey, did you guys stay till the end of the credits, the very very end?
I did. Yeah.
Did your audience laugh at the absence of an end credit scene?
Yeah, a couple people in my audience did.
Most of them were just like groaned and like, oh, really? Most of them left. People groaned when it came to this movie employed 15,000 jobs. Boo!
No, before that scene came up, like when it just went to black, or maybe it was after that, but everyone just started laughing as if the absence of the post-credit scene was a joke. Like, what?
That's what I'm talking about. Everything, like, they could have just not put it, but no, it's a self-aware commentary on everyone's expectations of having a put, like,
It's all right. It's okay, Sean. Have a cookie, Sean.
Oh, I wish I had a cookie around here.
Oh, no.
I'm going to go get some cookies.
No, I mean... Yeah, I was a little disappointed that there wasn't anything either, but also, I think the mid-credit scenes are the best credit scenes in any possible comic book movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, they're pretty great.
Yeah,
I did like that Juggernaut song though.
Oh, that was awesome.
Too. Also, what was Juggernaut? He was in X3. Was that supposed to be the same Juggernaut?
No, because nothing matters.
Oh, that's right.
He was voiced by Ryan Reynolds in this movie.
Nothing matters. Yeah, it was Ryan Reynolds.
What?
Yeah.
The X3 Juggernaut was voiced by Ryan
Reynolds.
No.
This Juggernaut. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. That's the other funny thing too. Is in both movies that have a Juggernaut, he shows up because he was locked up in a truck.
Yeah.
Classic Juggernaut.
Always getting himself locked up.
They got his
in
origin
trucks.
story down. He came from a truck and he broke out.
Well, I was hoping for maybe a Professor X cameo.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping a little more.
That's how you beat the Juggernaut.
He was.
You got to get it.
He was.
You got to get into his
just
head.
not in the same scene.
But you got to. They stuck a lightning up his butt, and he died. And
they were fighting
died.
dirty.
Right,
but
that's not how you beat Juggernaut.
Cool.
Everybody knows you beat Juggernaut by taking his helmet off and hitting him with
there could be a new meta. It could now be jamming an electrical wire up his butt.
Okay, but if those are the rules we're establishing, I don't want him ever defeated in any other manner. Also,
I like that he went back just to save Peter. Like, none of the other X-Force members, just Peter.
Didn't even save Brad Pitt. Left Brad Pitt on that wire.
Or Terry Crews. Or person from Mojo Planet, which, by the way, awesome.
That is, exactly.
Planet.
That's what I'm talking about. More actual comic book lore and mythology than any other. And it's funny too because there is an actual comic book character from the Mojo Planet called Longshot, and it looked kind of like that character. But Longshot's mutant power or special power is that he's incredibly lucky. So I was like, that's kind of weird that they have Domino and she's like super lucky or whatever. But anyways,
good Mojo Planet. I would love. I mean, off topic, but I would love a Mojo X-Men movie.
If any franchise would, Deadpool, I'd be cool with Deadpool going crazy, something like that.
Even before Deadpool was around, I'm like, man, they're going to run out of X-Men arcs here in a minute, which they are, because they're doing Dark Phoenix again, but at least they're doing Shi'ar Empire in Dark Phoenix, which is something they haven't done in the movies yet. But, like, what other big things in X-Men have they not done yet? They haven't done Mojo, and they haven't done like Genosha and all that stuff.
I was gonna say Genosha or the Savage Lands.
Savage Lands. Those are some of the things they haven't done yet. But I mean, probably, Fox isn't gonna have X-Men for much longer. It'll go to Disney soon. So
Comcast,
from what I hear,
they could just start everything over.
Comcast is trying to spoil Disney's fun.
We'll see. Whatever. I don't know.
I mean,
doesn't matter. Whoever ends up with
they're not gonna.
They're not gonna continue with this. Is what I mean.
Yeah.
So, and if Disney ends up with it, we'll see how Avengers 4 resolves. But they're not gonna go with this universe. Is the point?
Yeah.
But where else could you go with this universe that they haven't covered yet? Really, there's not a ton of stuff. You can do the really weird stuff like House of M and whatever.
But if Disney doesn't get Fox, I would be very curious where they're going to go with the Avengers. Because Fox has all of the big things that they want, at least villain-wise.
Well, it goes back to what we were saying. They should just reboot it. End it and reboot it. Completely Avengers universe.
I'm tired of this X-Men continuity, and I'm tired of pretending that all these X-Men movies take place in the same continuity.
This is the lie as a society we tell each other.
This is
well, from what I understand,
I cannot live this lie any longer.
From what I understand, Disney doesn't care too much about the X-Men. They're more concerned about getting the Fantastic Four rights back.
Well, I think mainly because of the Galactus, right?
Not just Galactus, but every all that stuff that comes with it, right?
Silver Surfer,
Because the Fantastic Four themselves are pretty boring and dumb. I don't like those characters, but the villains, I think, are the better part of it.
Yeah, but nobody thought Guardians was going to work, and they made Guardians work. Maybe Disney would be the ones that would actually make a good Fantastic Four movie finally. Who knows?
I
mean, I don't.
Why are you even on this podcast then?
I got nothing else to do.
What happened to Mouseology? You're supposed to know all that happens in the House of Mouse.
Look, I didn't renew my Disneyland pass, all right?
Oh, dang.
The end of an era.
You hear to hear it first, folks.
Chewie's never going to go back to Disneyland again.
All right. Well, does anyone else have any nuggets of insight for Deadpool 2?
It's pretty good.
It's good.
Yeah. Hey, that's good.
I don't know. It was pretty good.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think we could all agree to that.
I had never heard that version of that Aha song before.
It was a good version.
Yeah,
I already liked it.
Was pretty good.
I was touched. I was touched.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That moment worked
how
for
does
me.
this song work slow?
It did.
A lot of songs work slow.
Yeah, sure.
Have you heard the slow romantic version of All Star?
I have.
It's great. the guy girl duet on YouTube that's like trending right now.
I've seen that one.
It's beautiful.
It is.
You make any song beautiful.
Slow dance to that.
Okay. Well,
I'll make
there
sure to play it at my
many
wedding.
better things we could end a podcast with than slow version of All Star. But that's how we're ending it.
Sean, think about what you just said and like see if you still agree with that statement.
I'll have to get back on next episode.
I want you to reflect on that for the next couple of weeks until we film again, and let me know if you still stand by what you just said.
Okay. I'll have to do some deep soul searching. I'll get back to you.
Thank you. While you're doing it, listen to the
obviously.
romantic rendition of All Star.
On repeat. Just loop it.
Thank you.
Just loop it. Don't ever stop it until you're done reminiscing.
Good.
Sounds good. All right. Well, yeah, that wraps it up here. Thanks, everyone, for listening. So there's another film coming out that I think we're probably going to talk about. Some Star Wars film, Solo. So look out for that. That should be dropping hopefully within the next week. Dropping, that's how you say it cool, by the way.
We'll be releasing it digitally through online platforms for you.
We don't mean we're gonna literally drop anything, Grandma. Jeez, she's so old.
Wow,
she doesn't get it.
Do any of our grandmas listen to this?
That would be. I don't know what she would think.
I'll ask again. Does anybody listen to this? Is anyone out there?
I don't. I edit it and I don't. So
that's good.
But until then, you can always reach us at any what is it? Where can we reach it? YumChunks@gmail.com, or you could comment on any of the videos or any of the sites where you listen to us. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play. We're trying to get on Spotify. We promise we're trying. They won't let us for some reason. I don't get it. But
look, that one person that left a comment about Spotify is one of my students, so like we don't have to try.
No, I've had other people specifically say, "Are you guys on Spotify?" And I have to go, "No."
Well, Chris, get on it then. Real people are asking.
I did just I did the thing.
That student's no longer going to be listening now.
Nah, he's fine. He's good. It's all right.
I'm no longer going to listen. I don't like being attacked like this.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, until next time, thanks for tuning in, everyone, and go watch Deadpool 2. Get a laugh and a chuckle and
get a chimichanga.
And a chimichanga. Enjoy all the chimichangas. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
I refuse to say bye.